Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Hello everyone, welcome to Road to Cheltenham, coming to you from our new studios. They might not look too different to you or to us, if we're honest, and just down the road from our old ones. But Ruby, the big advantage they do have is it's warm.
Definitely not going to complain about that.
No, compared to the few weeks that we've had outside. We're going to get on with things, though, because there's lots to talk about. Not quite as much as ideal, but certainly a lot more than I feared at one point last week. I thought there could be a whiteout over the weekend, but in the end, we only lost Newcastle.
That's all. A significant enough meeting to lose, but the 50-50 has been saved, and there was good action, plenty of good novices, and some good open races too.
Very much so. Loads to talk about. We're going to start with the hurdlers and start over 2.5 miles, an intermediate trip, and the Hatton's Grace. And that saw the return of the Ballymore winner, Impere Pass, but he was dashed on the rocks like honeysuckle 12 months earlier of the rock of Chupu, and Impere Pass books out handily on the outside of Chupu and races keenly in Paul Townend's hands. And by the time we get to the first hurdle, he's gone by Jack Kennedy. And this is ideal for Jack, who switches back behind Paul and comes around on the outside of Paul on Impere Pass, who's a bit keen, and then he just keeps pushing him forward. Now down the inside, Astro Diamond is quite free as well, but Jack Kennedy has gotten Paul Townend in front of him. Now in hindsight, I've never seen Impere Pass race like this before. Paul would probably have lined up behind Jack Kennedy, but he didn't, and Jack got him in front of him then and has made this a test of stamina. Now Impere Pass jumped really well, he travelled really strongly, but when it got down to stamina, Chupu outstayed him. Yeah, it was a crawl, but then they got going on the home turn a long way out.
Yeah, it is a long way out, and it was testing enough ground. And look, both horses were having their first start, but it got into a battle, it got into stamina, and Chupu won out on the day.
There was a great bit of backseat driving from Jack Kennedy.
It was, but that's riding more than one horse in a race, Lydia.
As you were talking about last week. And what was your impression there about Chupu and what he can do this season?
He looked an ideal stairs hurdle type, didn't he? And he was a good start for him. Last year he beat Classical Dream and Honeysuckle. This year he's beaten Impere Pass. Look, for Impere Pass, what does that mean? Probably not very much, only he's not unbeaten anymore.
True. We'll come to him in a moment. But first of all, let's hear from Gordon Elliott. He spoke to Gary O'Brien immediately after the Hatton's Grace and told him about the plans for the season.
Yeah, I was worried they weren't going fast enough. I wanted to test to see the test the favour for stamina. But look, Ireland's a good horse. You know, it's the favourite's first run of the season. It's Ireland's first run of the season as well. He's going to improve from it. Ireland runs well fresh though.
Yeah, and he really stretched out to the line, as we've seen from him countless times in the past. What sort of a season do you think this could maybe set him up for potentially?
Look, obviously things change, but talking to me here today, I might go straight to the stairs.
No run in between?
Maybe not. He runs well fresh.
Okay. And is that subject to discussions, or that's likely how it's going to be?
Look, it's likely how it's going to be.
Okay.
That interview really made me giggle. I felt that Gary was channeling Chris Tarrant from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, by the end of it, I felt that Gordon wanted to yell, "Final answer!"
Yeah, channeling it. Are you sure you got the correct answer? That's what it sounded like from Gary. But look, you got to learn as you go forward. And obviously, Gordon feels that the run in last year's Galmoy took the edge off Chupu when he went to Cheltenham and he didn't win the stairs hurdle. So that's what he's learning from.
Yeah, I can see that he's got an excellent record fresh, but I can't see him. I mean, I thought that was his best run of the whole season in the Stayers Hurdle, and I felt that he held his form absolutely from the Hatton's Grace, the Galmoy and the Stayers Hurdle. They were all at a high standard. I didn't see a drop-off.
No, maybe not, but Gordon, I'd say, was hoping he might have improved through the season, and obviously felt he didn't.
Right, OK. It's a shame, isn't it, though, the straight to Cheltenham? I mean, Gordon isn't generally one for a straight to Cheltenham.
No, he's not. Like, so where does he go? Leopardstown at Christmas, 3 miles, or the Galmoy?
He's given the final answer. He's going straight to Cheltenham.
I'm giving you the options of what he could have done. What's he missing from? He's missing from one or other of those 2 races.
Yeah, OK. Let's talk about Impere Pass. He's lost his unbeaten record. Has he damaged his credentials as a champion hurdle horse? Actually, I asked you this question. Let's get your views first. These are the opinions I got from the roaders. I'll get Ruby's opinion in a moment. And these are the answers I got, Ruby. First of all, from Racing Gav. Now, he's clearly got Gav ratings because he thinks that Tupu dropped off during the course of the season. And then we've got Declan Healy, who's going back to 1999.
when Istabrack was conceding £5 and fell by 5.5 lengths to beat Limestone Lad. And he sees it in that kind of context. And then we've got Johnny Hamilton, who reckons on Paris didn't find much. A bit like Rooster Booster against Hardy Eustace in the Champion Hurdle of 2004. I think that's, I don't know, I feel that's a bit harsh on Rooster Booster. I know he ended up not finding much, but there was a point where I felt like, you know, that wasn't the case. Although Hardy Eustace was granite, wasn't he? And Richard Williams, and he just sees it as all part of the rich tapestry of racing, and that we shouldn't be fetishising an unbeaten record, and that it can help build a horse to be defeated. What do you think?
I wouldn't disagree, of course I can. But what does it mean for Impere Pass? I just think stamina won out, and he raced too keenly. He just got in the wrong place, and he was there to be shot at with running with the choke out, and I think he'll improve for the run.
So when you said that you've never seen him run like that, does that, how free he was, does that tie into Paul Tannen being on the outside at the start? Was it unexpected to him?
Of course it was, because and he was fresh, and it was his first run. He didn't race that way last year, and he just got caught in the wrong place. But he's not the first jockey that's happened to.
Do you think it shows that the horse needs 2 miles, a fast run 2 miles? We'll see it.
No, I'd say with the run under his belt, and even if you lined him up in behind horses, with not so much daylight, he probably would drop it and he'd get 2.5. But I think when you race as exuberantly as he did, when you're looking to build on the run, not being 110%, of course you're going to get a bit tired.
I tell you what I did like about him, how he jumped under pressure.
Jumped super, didn't he?
Really, really reliable, dependable. Because there was some pressure that he was put under by Jack Kennedy at the last. I know that you might have turned the screw a little bit more, but there was some pressure there.
There was, yeah, but you'd expect that.
And so where does he stand now with Stateman? Because you and I had a creative dissent, let's call it, earlier this week about who would achieve more on seasonal debut. Because I was arguing with much of a muchness that beating Echoes in Rain by 5 lengths is much of a muchness with being beaten a length by Chupu in the Hatton's Grace.
And I kind of argued, not the opposite, but I would think beating Echoes in Rain by 5.5 versus Astro Diamond by 7 was probably more.
Maybe.
Doctors differ.
No? OK. So Stateman's still number 1 at the moment, and
I would say he is. Stateman has 4 open Grade 1 hurdles won.
OK. That's how things stand there. Let's have a look at how things stand in the Unibet Champion Hurdle betting, shall we? Obviously, Constitution Hill is the 2-5 favourite, but we haven't seen him yet this season. Stateman is 6-1, and with Paddy Power, so is on Paris Pass. He is a point longer, or rather, Stateman a point shorter with other bookmakers. Right, let's take a look at the Fighting Fifth declarations, shall we? Constitution Hill is there. There was some debate between Michael Buckley and Nicky Henderson as whether he would run. During the course of the week, it became more likely that he would. Nicky is obviously concerned about the proximity of the Christmas hurdle. I think about 17 days on from the Fighting Fifth. Stable companion Shishkin is there as well. Goshen has got the cheek pieces back on. Le Vanvois is wearing her typical tongue tie. Now, lots of people will be intrigued by Shishkin lining up here, and obviously you understand from Nicky Henderson's perspective why he's doing it. The horses refused to start at Ascot. The intended plan B at the rehearsal chase has been abandoned. He needs a plan C if he's going to get to the King George. Can he actually feature in this race, do you think?
I don't think he can, but I think what's feature? So, I mean, do we expect anything to beat Constitution Hill? No, we don't. So does he feature as regards being a placed horse? Possibly. But look, I think the most relevant form is he's running last year's Tingle Creek. That was 2 miles, lines up at Sandown. And hard to say reluctant, but definitely thought about moving forward to the tape on this occasion. But
those are really interesting shots. I think I haven't seen those shots before.
Yeah, but you could read too much into that too. If he hadn't stood at Ascot, you wouldn't even be looking at them. And I was disappointed with him this day. This was the first day I thought, this horse wants a trip. Because to me, and I didn't realise at the time, maybe just he was thinking about going forward, but I thought he was always to the pin of his collar in the Tingle Creek. And I think dropping back to 2 miles over hurdles, misses the third last, I think it's too short for him.
How much is aptitude and how much is attitude, though?
Well, there's not much use having the aptitude if you ain't got the attitude.
Absolutely. This is the Supreme. So he's already made quite a critical error at the third hurdle.
Yeah, and does well to get by Elixir Danier there, who brings down Captain Guinness. But ultimately, when you look at this race, he outstays Stairs. Asterion Falange, Chantry House, Abacadabra, and it was Stamina that won on the 4, and that was 3 years ago. Now, he could be the first horse that's got quicker with age, but majority gets slower.
I suppose I'm just thinking, I mean, he was rated 177 after winning a Clarence House. That isn't that long ago. So he's a horse of innate ability. So is it Le Vanvois, who's unbeaten in 3 starts at Sandown, that you're expected to chase Constitution Hill provided he comes back in the same kind of form?
Yeah, and she's wearing a tongue tie. I thought the mare that won in Wetherby,
You wear it well.
She with fitness on her side, in farmyard. I wouldn't be surprised if she chases home Constitution Hill.
Okay. There's been some other interesting hurdle racing over the weekend. We're going to have a quick look at the Jerry Fielden. It was won by Hansard, and that pays a compliment to his elite conqueror, Rubor.
Yeah, it does, and Hansard's a good, straightforward horse. Thought he got a lovely ride from Niall Houlihan, and he was riding him for cover because he got tight across the bottom. Obviously, the filly that disappointed was under control, but Bad and Brentford Hope. Brentford Hope's just in front of him. Bad is in front, but Niall is keen to ride into the pocket between the 2 greys. He doesn't commit this horse or go looking to get out as they head for the second last hurdle, and under control misses this and trots. But Niall Houlihan takes a lead all the way from there to the last hurdle and doesn't put this horse in front till he's halfway up the run in. And when he does get there, he pricks his ears. I'd say there's a little bit more in the tank for Hansard, and he's a horse that's going to progress. Gary has mentioned a couple of more handicaps for him, but I could see him winning another one.
Yeah, Ascot over Christmas is what he's thinking for the next stop. Under control, she did make a mistake, but she was beaten very, very quickly.
Yeah, made a mistake and lights out. And
yeah.
I think what was more noticeable for her was she was friendless before the off.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. She did drift. She'd had a breathing operation during the summer. She'd flopped once before as well, and that was at the Cheltenham Festival, and that certainly in the debit column for her. We had Risk Bell returning to action and winning the Willowarm or Mullinan hurdle.
Yeah, and look, on ratings, her only danger was her stable companion in front of her, Augusta Wind, who unfortunately fell and suffered a fatal injury. But Risk Bell travelled super, a ride through on the inside off the home turn, and Nuzret in the red behind her, Hypotenuse on the outside, but she did this really easily. Now, ratings and weight allowances suggested that this is what she should be doing, but she's gone and done it. She looks like a filly that could step up and trip, and it was a pleasing comeback run for her.
It's the fluency with which she did it, wasn't it?
Yeah, really impressive, and you'd imagine she'd improve plenty further.
She's going to have to improve about a stone, isn't she, to get into the
Yeah,
men's
she
picture?
is, and it's a fair bit of improvement, but she is only 4 rising 5, and who knows, maybe she will.
OK, well, we'll keep an eye on her. We're going to go up in trip now to 3 miles for a veteran-tastic long-distance hurdle. What did you make of this?
Veteran-tastic, that's
It was.
very much a Lydia one. Manslaughter booked out with a really good gallop. Flight Deck was the one that elected to sit second with Paisley Park. Marie's Rock was down the inside. I think she's ultimately the disappointing one, Lydia. But in the start quick, then out to the back straight, Dashel Drasher was sort of off the bridle first. When they faced across the bottom, it was Paisley Park that was being nudged along, and that's in typical fashion for them. But when it got down to the serious end, Marie's Rock missed the third last, and that was pretty much the end of her challenge. She never really looked like getting involved from there on, as Dashel Drasher and Paisley Park set down with Flight Deck, who's running an absolute cracker. But when you get to the last hurdle here, there's only a head in it at the end. As they're approaching the last hurdle, you can see the difference in 2 horses' speeds. Dashel Drasher to Paisley Park, and the difference is 0.14 of a second that Dashel Drasher is going faster. At the jump, the speed lost is the next one you're going to see. Next one, the time in the envelope, how long it took them to get through, 4.46 and 4.45. The difference is 0.9 in favour of Dashel Drasher. Dashel Drasher got through here a good bit quicker than Paisley Park, and the difference in the whole lot was 0.6 of a length. And when you watch how Paisley Park closes down Dashel Drasher, that stall at the last, that extra time in the air, the loss of momentum, is the difference between Paisley Park winning and losing.
That is kind of typical him, though, isn't it?
Well, that's the story of his life, but at least we put a figure on it for once.
I mean, it was almost a carbon copy of 12 months earlier when he just failed to run down the exquisitely ridden Champ. This time around, though, he was conceding £6, wasn't he, to the winners? So it's a huge run. Emma Lavelle's saying she's taking it race by race with Paisley Park, and that next race will be the long walk. Yeah,
Ascot. Look, he's a good record. Goodish record there, hasn't he?
He's won 3 times, once at Kempton.
Yeah, so look, he's a wonderful horse, but just that was the difference in winning and losing for him on Saturday. But Marie's Rock, to me, was the one that you came out of there with question marks about. I mean, Paisley Park and Dasher were top class. Flight Deck definitely caught my eye with the improvement he's made, but Marie's Rock, she was a head scratcher.
Yeah, I'll come to her in a second because I just feel like we ought to discuss Dasher because he won the damn race. Jeremy Scott was saying afterwards he was just a little bit worried last season that he'd kind of forgotten how to win. And so hence the cheek pieces after what I thought was a superb performance when second, demoted to third, promoted to second in the Stayers Hurdle.
It was, and that was probably the best run of his life.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, maybe you kind of overlook him because, I don't know why, we've all been guilty of overlooking him maybe at times, but he had his day in the sun on Saturday.
Very much so, and he heads to the long walk as well. And I echo your thoughts on Flight Deck for Deborah Cole. She's only had him for 2 starts. Huge performance at Cheltenham. Chris Ward couldn't claim in the long distance hurdle a career best performance, a really mighty run. But you're right to focus on Marie's Rock. You were interested in her pre-race demeanour, which wasn't great.
I didn't think so. I just thought she got quite worked up. Now, obviously, she wears a red hood, so that's in her to do that. She's not wearing the hood for decoration, but like, we had plenty of inspections for frost last week. I'd say she was the only one in Newbury that was sweating.
Yeah. This is her just before she runs in the Liverpool hurdle when she was second to Cider Burley, her first go at 3 miles.
Yeah, and the same red hood, but she looks a tad more relaxed there to me. Now, that was the end of the season, but I would have thought in April, the sweat should have been running off her. If she's going to sweat at Newbury in November.
Does that pre-race demeanour suggest that she probably wasn't quite ready?
Too fresh.
Too fresh, yeah.
I would imagine is what will come out of it. But she still has to improve a fair way from there. And if you are a bit fresh and a bit undercooked, she went all of 3 miles. Could take a bit of getting over.
Yeah. Nico de Boinville was talking immediately afterwards about maybe dropping back to the Relkeel where she beat Geldings last season and then building back up to 3 miles. But is the trip still a question mark for you then?
I thought she got it at Aintree, so behind Sarah de Burley. I mean, Flooring Porter was behind her, but I suppose in the back of your mind you'd be thinking maybe.
Okay. Let's have a look at the betting, shall we, for the Paddy Power Stayers Hurdle. And Chupu, obviously, after that Hatton's Grace win, is rightfully the favourite at 4-1. That is an interesting second favourite. That is Thelem, who is currently the best hurdler in France. He's won 6 of his last 7 starts, including 3 Grade 1s at 3 miles. Time form, interestingly, have him £17 clear of Gold Tweet, who won the Cleve last season. His official rating is 82 kilograms over in France. How do you translate that?
Well, 82 by 2.2 is 164, plus 10% is 170, 180 point something.
OK. So he's a serious player were he to come over, isn't he?
He is. Obviously won the French champion hurdle last June and won the autumn version in Auteuil in November. So I don't know, Shai trains him and he has a huge rating anyway.
Yeah, and interestingly, Arnaud Shai said that he is interested in Cheltenham, the Stayers Hurdle. He had some concerns about the different obstacles and so he wondered about whether to give the horse a dry run, which says to be Cleve, potentially.
Yeah, could be.
He's currently out of training.
But that would be very unfriendly. Well, I know Gold Tweet did it last year, but you watched them with preps for their own champion hurdle. They run at shorter distances.
Yeah, my French... Oh, you're right, actually. It could say Relkeel, couldn't it?
Yeah, more so. I'd be surprised. Now, I know Gold Tweet did, but Gold Tweet wasn't entered in the Stayers.
Yeah,
the Cleve was his target.
Yeah.
But French trainers tend to run short before they go long.
That's an interesting point. My French correspondent, who is Alan Potts, was saying that this is a horse that tends to run up to form, so he needs a couple of preps in order to get there. He's currently been out of training since his last win, but that is the plan. Really interesting runner. Let's hope that Thelem turns up. Now, for the first time in Road to Cheltenham this series, we're going to focus on the novice hurdlers. I reckon it's about time. There was a Grade 1, the Royal Bond, at the weekend.
There was interesting contest. Horansu Dari, who was an outsider, booked out in front. Rachel Blackmore sat second on Tobar. And she took Danny on away from the stands. Danny wasn't going that quick. Farron Glory's down the inside. Bailey Stock at the very back, and Canto Bruno, who'd run really well at Cheltenham, all in the heap at the third last. But look for the Jigginstown cap, maroon with the white star, King of Kingsfield. He goes from last round the outside as they approach the home straight, and he gets himself upsides in front. Now that does keep Jack Kennedy in a pocket in behind a lot of the other runners heading for the second last, but he's able to get out. King of Kingsfield's gone to the front. On Tobar, after jumping brilliantly, didn't find very much, but Farron Glory gets on top and gets on top comprehensively. But to me, what I took out of this was King of Kingsfield made that big run in the middle of the race and I was impressed with a horse that beat him at Naas called Slade Steel a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we're going to have a look at him later on in the show. I can see your point about King of Kingsfield, but in the post-race interview, Jack Kennedy, who was on the winner, basically implied that he was quite pleased to see that horse in front of him, because this is a horse that has now finished second on his last 3 starts.
Yeah, he has. Went very fast in Naas on his penultimate start and made a big move in the middle of his last start. I just wouldn't like you taking him on in a maiden all the same.
Oh, I see. OK. Yeah, I was just interested because Jack had obviously ridden him before. Do you think that he hasn't been ridden to best effect? Do you think he can make a hit at graded level, or is it just you're just talking maidens?
I think he'll definitely a winner in waiting, but I was more interested in the horse Slade Steel that beat him, and putting proper equation on that form.
I liked Farron Glory's run. I thought he was well on top here. I thought that he was shuffled back, as you've explained, and wasn't that tidy at the last, but didn't need much asking to settle it quite decisively.
No, he didn't. And Canto Bruno probably doesn't handle that ground, but Bailey Stock was third, wasn't he? Fourth, and he sets a level.
And he's no longer a novice now, is he?
No.
And again, there's Amtabar as well, chasing type maybe, do you think?
Possibly.
That was just his second career start. I quite liked that run. Right, I'm going to stick with Fairy House and Firefox versus Ballyburn.
Yeah, maiden hurdle on Saturday. Firefox jumped out in front. Ballyburn was a little keen behind him. You also had Arancy and Helvig Dream in here. Helvig Dream, of course, a Group 1 winner on the flat. But Firefox jumped brilliant. Ballyburn a little bit high at the second hurdle. But when they got across to the third last, which you're thinking it's take your pick, but when they started quick into the second last, Firefox gets much better jump than Ballyburn at the second last, and that puts him on the upper hand, and Ballyburn can never peg him back. Firefox has won 3 bumpers, Ballyburn won a couple. I'd say they're 2 high-class horses. They put a long way in front of Irancy. Helvig Dream makes a mistake at the last, but you'd have to love what Firefox did. All the quickens all the way to the line, and Ballyburn kept chasing them, and they went a long way, the 2 of those, to pull up.
So the runner-up, Willie Mullins, wouldn't have been disappointed with that?
No one likes losing, but I would have thought he was overly disappointed.
They're both nice-looking horses. Ballyburn carries his head quite low. Why is that?
Yeah, and the race is a bit keen. That's the way he sits against the rider. He's head in the ground.
And it's just a habit thing?
Yeah, just every horse is different, just the way he carries himself.
OK. Firefox is a half-brothers of the Boss's Oscar as well, so 2 exciting horses. Now, the next one we're going to talk about, When at Thurles. I really like this horse. Daddy Longlegs, what do you think of him?
Yeah, he was good, and he was quite green. Has a little shimmy in the take-off side of the second hurdle as he goes left and right. Irish Panthers in front of him sets a high enough standard. He's a bit high at the third hurdle. Huge improvement to come out of Daddy Longlegs. And when they got back to the second last hurdle, he goes to join Irish Panther in front, jumps it well, and then quickens away down the hill at Thurles to put a good distance between himself and the rest of them. Again, he will have improved jumping wise for the experience, and it was a really good performance.
He's just 4. I know it's a pretty one-sided contest. What do you think his trip's going to be? Looks like he's got pace.
Thurles is just under 2 miles. It's 1.7 miles and a bit. Fast track. I couldn't see why you'd be stepping him up yet anyway.
Okay.
Until he gets beaten.
If you're thinking about Cheltenham terms, though, it could be either, because as we've discussed many times before, the Supreme can obviously often be a test of stamina, and the Ballymore a test of pace.
It can be, yeah, but I'm just trying to think, the Thurles maiden hurdle winners to win a Supreme, Ebezion, maybe?
Maybe. Not sure.
Neither am I.
I'll know by this time next week. Just not now. Let's have a look at fun winning at Thurles, shall we?
Yeah, and look, it wasn't the strongest race in the world. She beat Sands, Risk and Jakiki, but she booked out in front under Patrick Mullins and never really saw another rival. Jumped really well as well. She was well clear from early in the contest. And yeah, I suppose we're looking for a mare for the novice hurdles. This filly was impressive on her first start, but her price was suggestive that this what she should have been doing, and that was what she did. And good performance, but wasn't the strongest contest.
She's a real live wire, isn't she?
She is, isn't she?
She's
quite quiet. She's quite quiet at home.
Is she?
She was quite live there. Yeah.
But she changes at the racecourse.
Yeah.
Yeah. OK, that's what's been going on in Ireland. Nicky Henderson has been quite busy over here in Britain. A couple of interesting runners over the weekend. We'll start with Jericho de Repenay. He was quoted at around 12-1 before he'd run under rules for the Supreme.
Yeah, fine horse. Centara in front of him. You can see him running around with Harry Cobden.
But Nico was happy to sit in behind him, lobbing away here last hurdle down the back, heads to the turn last, Tantara in front of him, has a good look at the wing, and he was well away from it and gets back inside. And you're half thinking at the back of the second last, oh, how's Nico going? Is this horse really going to pick up the way you're expecting him to? But by the time he gets between the two horses in front of him and gets to the last hurdle, as soon as he lands, he's hard on the bridle, and now it's, you know, just saunter up here and win as easy as I can. Really good performance, and really visually impressive, but how do you quantify the form? I'm not sure.
Well, it didn't look up to the usual standard of a Newbury novice, and even Nicky Henderson said so afterwards. But that horse would have learnt plenty. I mean, that was an educative move, wasn't it, to come between horses?
Oh, it was, yeah. And I thought he jumped really well, and there's nothing he could dislike. It's just, how do you jump up and down and say, you know, I've seen the champion, when you can't put any weight on the race?
He was cut to 8-1 for the Supreme anyway. You know, stop coming at me with these facts. I just like the profile. 8-1 for the Supreme. You must be mad. Right, let's have a look at the Saturday race at Newbury, which was also won by Nicky Henderson, but narrowly. Jinko Blue won this ahead of Masaccio and Email Andy.
Yeah, Email Andy booked out in the front then. Jinko Blue had a run at Warwick prior to this. Raced a little bit in Nico's hands and made a mistake at the last hurdle with a circuit to go, but you know, Nico was keen to get involved in the race. Last hurdle in the back straight, jumps upsides Email Andy, and they keep pressing from here. Really good jump at the third last, but my eye was always drawn to the grey, to Masaccio, I thought. And I thought he was coming to win at the last hurdle, but to be fair to Jinko Blue, he really digs in. Masaccio's gone to the front, and you're thinking he's home. Email Andy hasn't given up either on the inside, but I was impressed with how this horse battled Jinko Blue, and that may be even probably more appreciative of personal ambition who beat him at Warwick.
Yes, who we'll get to in a moment. I liked all three of those horses. They came home a long way clear. I think they've each got a future in their different ways.
Definitely. And I did think Masaccio was the one that arrived there to win. Didn't, but probably could improve the most.
And then Jinko Blue was the youngest and managed to wear him down. That was a good performance. Of course, Nicky Henderson's also had Django Bai, who's won at Ascot already, and he's also got a strong hand this weekend at Sandown. We can have a look at a couple of those races, starting with Friday's Betfair Beacons Winter Novices Hurdle. This is a Grade 2 over 2.5 miles, and Nicky Henderson has South of the Border, but this is a strong race, and we're going to have a look at four of the contenders here, starting with, are we going to start with South of the Border?
South of the Border, red and yellow colours in behind. This is at Sandown, over 2 miles. Again, Nico gets his horse upsides, going to the third last hurdle. This is only over 2 miles, but he cruises into the home straight, goes to the second last, travelling really well, pings it and wins in a canter. They're obviously stepping him up in trip after one start, but again, visually to the eye, he was impressive.
Very much so. Then we've got Personal Ambition, who you've mentioned already, representing Ben Pauling.
I think Personal Ambition at Warwick did plenty wrong and still managed to beat Jinko Blue. Here he is jamming on at the second hurdle. He jammed on at the last hurdle as well. Into the straight, Jinko Blue makes the mistake on the inside, but watch Personal Ambition at the last. He gets it all wrong under Keelan Woods and still manages to maintain that distance. We know the runner-up has franked the form, so I actually thought this was a really good performance.
I agree. I thought this was excellent. Slightly awkward at the last, but came right away. He's had a breathing operation prior to this success, and obviously Jinko Blue has franked the form. Then there is Insurrection's win at Exeter.
Yeah, booked out good and handy, made all, jumped well, travelled well, good sized field. Was clear at the last, and he kept going all the way to the line. That was over 2 miles. Harry Cobden made plenty use of him, and again, Harry Cobden and Paul Nichols, a bit like Nicky Henderson, Nico de Boinville, aren't afraid to go to 2.5 straight away with these horses.
Yeah, he too had a winding operation in the closed season. And here we are finally, deafening silence for the Skeltons, another win at Exeter.
Yeah, and he sat in behind a well-backed favourite and wrapped up in May, Harry Cobden in front, who made a mistake at the second last, and deafening silence, who was an English pointer, got to him straight away and grounded out from here home. Now, he's coming down a trip. This was over 2.5, but he wrapped up in May, was well thought of, and deafening silence beat him fair and square.
Yeah, he jumped much better than wrapped up in May. The beaten favourites, and it is going to be testing at Sandown. Herders course is currently soft, heavy. The chase course obviously not quite as, it always rides a little bit quicker, so it is going to take some getting, I think.
It is, but they're four fair novices pitching in against each other. It's a good race.
I think that's a really good race. One of the strongest editions potentially on paper of the Winter Novice Hurdle that I can remember. We've also got a good run at Navan as well, the Tote Navan Hurdle over 2.5 miles as well. How do you see this going?
It's an interesting race, Lydia. Better days ahead. Obviously, fella at the Norton has improved. Lecky Watson won well at Thurles. Stellar Story, Jack Kennedy's gone for him. But I thought Sladesteel, I was really impressed. I know I've mentioned him a few minutes ago. Here he was at Naas, King of Kingsfield in front of him, who went a really good gallop and had the benefit of a run under his belt, King of Kingsfield. Sladesteel had to work hard, but I loved the way he got to him. I loved the way he jumped the last, and I thought this was an impressive performance over hurdles first time for a horse who had good bumper form.
Now, we hadn't conferred about this until this morning, and I've got such a positive note about this success at Naas, and like you, I think he's going to improve up in trip. I'm really excited by this horse.
Yeah, so am I, and that's a fair hurdle race, that race in Navan on Saturday.
On Saturday. OK, so again, lots to talk about there. I should also mention that Nicky Henderson is running Will Mount, who's also already won a novice hurdle with. He runs in the opening listed hurdle at Sandown on Saturday, facing 3 rivals. So there's loads to talk about in this division. So make sure you tune in next week for that. We need to move on now to the juveniles.
So lads, apparently I'm meant to be asking people at home to subscribe to the Paddy Power Racing YouTube channel.
I said Niall's a false start. Shut up! It's not a false start.
You've described this day as possibly your worst day ever.
Have you ever heard of Ruby Walsh?
A John Wayne lookalike on him, more than likely at the same time.
Wow. Second horse isn't worth the mares.
It's expensive bars, Mark.
Yeah.
A fence at Cheltenham where you go like that.
That'd be an entry, yeah.
I cut your nuts off. What do you think had happened to you?
So much like we did a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to ask Ruby Walsh to pick out a couple of juvenile hurdlers, the ones that he thinks are the clubhouse leaders either side of the Irish Sea, but you've gone one better than that, you've produced 3.
Yeah, we stuck in Woodoo as well, winning at Newbury last week to give the crossover in form. But from an Irish point of view, you'd have to say the 3-year-old hurdle or juvenile at Ferryhouse last weekend. Nürburgring, Cala Conti, Batman Girac was probably the strongest form. Now, Batman Girac at the back missed the first hurdle with Paul Townend. He was quite keen and well beaten by the time he turned in. But Lydia, I was really impressed with how Cala Conti even, and Nürburgring quickened off the bend to the second last hurdle. Both jumped it well, and they kept going all the way to the line. I thought this was a good race.
Compared to the other 2-mile hurdles on the day, it really stands up in terms of times when you think about the fact that they're juveniles and weights carried and all that kind of stuff. So I think these 2 are both serious juveniles in Ireland.
They look to be. Look, obviously time will tell. We'll see them at Christmas as well. On the UK front, you'd have to go back to the horse at Cheltenham, Burdett Road, the horse to Harry Cobden Road. I know it was a messy race early, but this was a good performance from a high-class flat horse whose jumping is okay. He gets from A to B, but he does so in a pretty efficient fashion. But he was impressive. Now, obviously, the first hurdle was really messy. One on the left runs out, and there's horses everywhere. But that's juvenile hurdling for you. That's what can happen. But Burdett Road parks himself at the back, flattens this hurdle the first down the back, and when you look at it, top 4th last hurdle, he's still stone last. 3rd last hurdle down the hill, he was still last. And by the time he gets on to the 2nd last hurdle, well, there's one behind him. But he has a lot of running to do, and he quickens well, really low and quick at the last hurdle, and you'd have to like the way he sprinted to the line. And he was a high-class flat horse. It's good performance, but he has plenty to learn about racing.
Yes, he does. But as you made the point, high-class flat horse, rated 101 on the flat, good enough to win a 10-furlong 3-yard handicap at the Royal Meeting. It's rare that a horse of that standard goes hurdling these days.
It is very rare, but rare too. Like if you look at, I suppose Isterblack is one of the most famous ones, but a horse rated that high, he's as good over jumps. A lot of them with really high ratings maybe aren't quite as good.
Do you think a quicker run race will actually see him to better effect?
It will make him easier for Harry Cobden to ride. I mean, that's if providing Paul Nicholls doesn't have a juvenile. But yeah, if they're going quicker, it'll make him easier to settle. And the faster he was going, actually, the better he jumped.
Okay. So that is James Owen's Burdett Road. I should have mentioned, of course, that Nürburgring was with Joseph O'Brien, Cala Conti with Gordon Elliott. And there's one crossover, which is also in the Elliott stable. This is the filly Woodhoo.
Yeah, who won at Newbury last Friday, beat Max of Stars. And I think she was impressive. She had won twice in Ireland at Punchestown and Down Royal. Pops the last, but Jack Kennedy's body language versus Sam Twiston Davis's one is
going for everything, the others barely going through the motions, and there is the crossover. If you can try and correlate form from Ireland to England, that's the race to do it through.
Yes, Gordon was saying afterwards, and this was his first winner at Newbury, and also Jack Kennedy's first winner at Newbury. Obviously, they haven't had that many goes at it, but he was saying afterwards that they're thinking of going to Chepstow for what is now the Grade 2 juvenile.
Oh, the old finale.
At Chepstow.
Probably still the finale.
Yeah, still the finale, but a grade lower. So she'll be taking on the geldings there, potentially.
Yeah, she would, but she looks a really strong stayer, and she's plenty of experience.
And she has some experience against Nürburgring as well. She met him on her debut and was awarded the race against him.
Yeah, exactly. So form ties in.
Yeah, OK, so those are what we think are at the top of the tree at the moment with the juvenile hurdlers, but Ruby thinks we're talking about to prep precipitately anyway, don't you?
I think January's time enough to talk about juveniles.
OK. Juveniles in January. Next time we'll talk about them, probably. So now it's time for the novice chasers, and we've got plenty to talk about in this section, Ruby. I thought we'd start at Newbury with the John Frankham, the Berkshire chase over 2.5 miles.
Yeah, look, Hermes Allen was obviously the really interesting one beforehand. The horse of Nickelback went a good gallop, pinged the first. Hermes Allen was good early. You were thinking, I'm not sure how far back he's ever going to stand from a fence, but he's very, very good when he gets in. Now, Nickelback was galloping along in front, but he got overly brave in the back. And when you're front running, you can't afford to miss like that. Now, I wasn't sure how Hermes Allen was going at the back of the fourth last, but by the time they get to the third last, when Nickelback makes another mistake, he's arrived strong. But he's really, he was good there, Hermes Allen, as Nickelback missed. But when he gets in close, he's very good, Hermes Allen. And he has great power, he's great use of his feet. He's a high-class horse, he was a decent novice hurdler, he's made a good transition, and to be honest with you, when I looked at it beforehand, that's what you were kind of hoping he'd do.
But he was making his debut over fences against horses that seem to have shown improved form, already switched to the discipline.
Yeah, they had, and they had a bit of experience, but you're still thinking if Hermes Allen is going to live up to expectations, for my money, that's what he should have been doing.
Yeah. He won the Challow Hurdle, of course, last season, and then the form kind of tailed off a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, it did. I suppose at Cheltenham, and any went to entry and wasn't as good, but I wouldn't tar him with that brush too quickly. Look, he's a chaser, and he's going to win plenty of races.
And Paul Nicholls was quite interesting about this season as well, immediately after that success when I spoke to him, and he explained what had caused him to be behind schedule with Hermes Allen.
Well, we weren't really sure. He was, quite chronically lame, and he found out in the end he had an infection in his foot. There was deep-seated infection and a few other little issues, so we dealt with that. It just took us a while to clear up, but once that was cleared up and we got a shoe back on him and we were playing catch-up with him. So it's just one of those things you have to deal with when you're training.
I'm really impressed that he's managed to do that of that kind of preparation.
Yeah, so was I. And, we rushed his schooling a little bit as well because of that. He's had one school on grass last week, but it's so much easier when horses got class like that. It makes it easy.
So, interesting to know where he's going to go next. The programme book over here in Britain has changed quite a bit this time around. The Dipper has disappeared. That was going to be his target in the back of his head. Quick reappearance at Cheltenham is possible, and then a break, but he's got quite a few novice chasers to shuffle around. Yeah, he does. Yeah, obviously Nappers Hill, Stay Away Faye, who's entered it in Sandown. But that's a good dilemma to have. It is. It's a great dilemma to have. Anything to say about the horses in second, third, and fourth? Nickelback will pay his way, but just when you're that brave in front, you can't afford to miss. You're giving away the advantage you have, but a brilliant jump at the first fence, but you're giving it away in the middle of the race, making mistakes like that. Yeah, but Sarah Humphrey was dead proud of him afterwards. And I did like the way
as you would be.
He stuck on as well for a clear second. It could be
slightly better going the other way. He did jump out into the middle of the track.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It went at Warwick before and Stratford, so but it was a really good performance there. Right, let's move on to Grade 1 action over at Fairyhouse for the Drinmore, and this was won by a horse that is no longer a novice. Yeah, I am Maximus won. I found a 50 booked out to make the run-in, but Keith Donoghue was quick to take it over, and let's be clear about it. But this was the first mistake I am Maximus made. He didn't look like the horse with the handicap experience in against the novices. Now, he was quite good up the side of Fairyhouse at fences 5 and 6. I am Maximus match, found a 50, and let's be clear about it. But at the 9th fence, I am Maximus, the white cap, jams on here. That ended up in a loss of over 3 lengths to I am Maximus.
And the next fence, again, the two novices out jumping. Down to the second last, he gets quite awkward, as let's be clear about it, is starting to run out of steam, and found the 50 comes. But at this time of year, Lydia, there's only 2 fences in the home straight in Ferryhouse, and it makes it really stamina testing. And the horse with the most stamina has come to the fore, and one Aya Maximus. Found the 50 has lost little in the feet, but he probably walked away thinking, oh, is he just a grade 2 horse?
Yeah. I'll come back to the actual novices in a moment, but first of all, should an Irish Grand National winner really be allowed to in a novice chase at all the following season?
I suppose he's won enough of prize money as a novice. I know the rule is written that it excludes grade 1 winners only if you, after the 1st of February, if you win, but that probably opens a bigger debate, Lydia. To me, a novice is a horse with little experience, yet you could be a novice for 5 years if you never win a race. You're a novice until you win, so you could have 40 runs and be a novice. So that probably needs to be looked at.
Okay. So, I mean, I suppose you'd keep them in novice company for what period after their first win?
Unexpected Party is in the Henry VIII. How many runs did he have last year? Gaillard de Menil had a whole season. Like, what actually is a novice? Is a novice, you're a maiden, or is a novice supposed to be a horse that lacks experience?
And then you'll have the problem with Iroko next season, who has got a leg injury, has already won a chase.
So when you win, should you be a novice for X amount of runs, be that 6 or whatever it is? Is Iroko should be, and he's not the first one. Then you had to introduce graduation chases that you now have novices running in. Like, you can try and refine and change things. I don't know what the answer is, but you do kind of wonder. A novice is surely a novice.
Okay. We have some race IQ data from Maximus in particular in this race, and the question I have to you, based on that, Ruby, bearing in mind that he was the horse that lost the most ground whilst jumping, and let's be clear about it, was the one who gained the most. Can Maximus cut it when back into graded company inevitably now?
But that's probably why he was still a novice on the 1st of February, because he threw away a novice chase at Ferryhouse, or beginner's chase. He threw away a beginner's chase at Leopardstown last Christmas. So that's the only reason he ended up still in that division, was because of his jumping that had let him down on several occasions. And it's probably still his Achilles heel.
Particularly once he moves into the
Now, that was only 2.5, maybe going back up in trip, but against better horses, when he goes back up in trip, they're probably going to be going the same speed. But and actually, I thought he'd be a better horse going left-handed, but his 2 wins have come right-handed.
Yeah, I know, but I think he's a perverse horse.
Yeah, perverse.
So
let's perverse. This is a new one.
It doesn't do what you expect him to.
Right.
It's, you know, yeah.
Bit like you.
Well, I was thinking the same about you. Found a 50. Let's be clear about it. Sharjah, how do you see things from their perspectives?
I still have confidence in Found a 50. Let's be clear about it. Had 2 runs into a 3rd run over fences now. Probably hasn't improved as much as you thought from hurdles to fences, and Sharjah definitely wants better ground.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was slightly disappointed, let's be clear about it. I was, particularly given how well he jumped as well.
Yeah, but he was behind those as a hurdler.
Yes, he was, and I thought that's my point. I thought that fences might take him further, and
just
haven't.
Enough.
No. Right, okay. Now it's time to analyse this.
So for Analyse this week, well, Jack Kennedy's in it again, but he's not on his own this week, and it's some race riding in the beginner's chase at Ferryhouse last Saturday. Jack, of course, was riding 3-car Bragg. Paul Townend and Nick Rocket down the inside behind him. Monty Star, Rachel Blackmore and Corbett's Cross in behind. But when they jump the 3rd last and Paul Townend moves forward, he's in a pocket. Rachel Blackmore knows she has him there, so she's intent in keeping him there. And Mark Walsh in the white cap, he's going to move forward and not allow Paul out either. Paul has a look off the bend here. Will he get through when Jack Kennedy's inside? Jack in front, can't ride bang down the inside rail. He has to leave a little bit of light, which isn't going to run out. But Paul doesn't jump the 2nd last quick enough. Jack gets back over in front of him. Across comes Rachel, and lo and behold, who's next to come? Mark Walsh in the white cap. This isn't team tactics. This is just proper race riding. Jack keeps it dead straight. He can't keep bang against the inside rail. There's half a gap. Paul is going there. There's not enough for him, but there's enough to keep trying to get there. Ultimately, does it have any effect on the result? Probably not, because I think the best horses won. But I do think it's good to see jockeys aware of where they are in races, keeping things tight and not giving others opportunities. But the best horse definitely won.
So an interesting race, and I tend to agree with you. I think Corbett's Cross was well on top. I suppose he did have the benefit of chase experience, though.
Yeah, he had a good run in ace behind Grange Clare West over his rivals, but it was still a good performance, and look, he's a horse I've always liked.
People will be thinking back, though, to the Albert Bartlett, and I think it's only fair that we have another look at it. I know we've talked about it before, but this is what happened. He ran out at the last, went in second.
Yeah, he did, but he's tight to this rail, and there's a straight wing in front of him rather than a splayed wing. And look, the temptation was there. What did Mark Walsh do from now forever again? He just won't ride him anywhere close to the wing and give him the option or the temptation of going out. Everything happens, and in hindsight, Mark would have moved in 2 horsewidths, but look, that's history, and that form looks solid. That's Stay Away Faye in front.
Oh, I'm not doubting his ability. I suppose what I'm wondering is, are you saying that almost all horses would have done that in that position?
A lot of horses would. A lot of horses. You tempt them. That's what I always thought. Never give the horse the option. Never tempt it.
So it would have to be... What kind of horse wouldn't take that option?
I wouldn't have gone up there on Denman anyway.
OK.
Guarantee you that.
OK. Interesting. Others, 3-Card Bragg, Monty Star, who's a horse I very much like. I think he's going to make a great chaser. And Nick Rocket, who had no space. No space.
Limited.
Limited space. What do you make of them in terms of
they're
their
fair
futures?
horses and all, you know, they're good stayers. It was a really decent beginner's chase and they'd all get their turn. But look, I think there's huge strength across the novice chases. Even if the Drinmore mightn't have been, I think there's great strength in what novice chases we have on both sides of the Irish Sea.
Yeah, I think they're really coming through, and I agree with you, that beginner's chase was strong. Another one from Thurles now, from last Thursday. This was won by Lete Tong.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about this fella going chasing. He didn't strike me as a hurdler, like a horse that wanted a fence, but he was much better. Aspire Tower jumped himself to the front of the second fence. He let Tomp, who had been keen in the past, settle nicely for Paul Townend in second and showed plenty of power there. You also had Monbeg Park in third place, Home My Lord behind him. Thurles is a competitive track. It was a fast run race. Made a mistake at the third last. He let it Tom, but he recovered from it quickly with a good jump at the second last to put that behind him, and he sprints away from him down the straight. Now Aspire Tower probably wants a little bit further. Home My Lord has come home well. Monbeg Park got a bit tired, so did Walnut Beach, but good performance from and I thought he jumped well. I wasn't certain about how that was going to go for him.
Is that because he isn't the scopiest, not an obvious chasing type?
Just thought he kicked plenty of hurdles out of the ground, to tell you the truth.
So more respect, essentially.
Seems to have, and he looks like a horse to have more use of himself, now that he's actually making the effort.
And a bit calmer as well, perhaps?
Age seems to have calmed him down a bit, yeah.
I was really pleased to see Aspire Tower back, because he was off for about 902 days prior to his run prior to that, wasn't he?
And just going a bit further really suited him. I mean, he was a really decent juvenile, and he looked to me like he wanted a little bit further.
And Home My Lord is, compared to the others, I think, probably quite inexperienced.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it was a good step forward for him.
Yeah, OK. Right, this weekend we have some important novice chases. Let's start by having a look at Friday's race. This is a new race at Sandown. The Betfair Esher Novices Chase, a Grade 2 over 3 miles. Now, you'll remember that one of Newbury's races, novice chases over 3 miles, had been deleted. This has been replaced it, I suppose, in the calendar in a hopefully better position. And so we've got Stay Away Faye, Giovinco, the Changing Man. Now, Ruby, you've already discussed Stay Away Faye and the Changing Man when they met at Exeter. How about Giovinco for Lucinda Russell?
Yeah, look, he obviously won at Aintree in a race that was marred by the sun. This was the first fence he jumped, and it was a long way from the start to the first fence. And he was quite ponderous at the first. He was a bit better at the second fence, big and at the third fence he was big and bold. So he strikes you as a jumper. Now, they jumped the back fence in the back straight twice on the cross fence, but on the second circuit, Giovinco's jumping had really warmed up. A little bit awkward maybe at the cross fence, which was ultimately his vast fence, but he beats Universal Folly, Tiger Orchard, Lord of Kerrak. I think only doing enough, and he'll have improved for the run, but I would say he's facing arguably the best novice in England.
Stay Away Faye, yeah. You made that case a couple of weeks ago, didn't you? Absolutely.
Yeah, I do, and he'll be a big step up on that.
And he'd shaped quite well behind Good Risk at All at Carlisle, hadn't he, and seating his rider. Brown Advisory, Lucinda Russell has already said, is the sort of long-time penciled-in target for that horse. But I take your point. How will Sandown suit Stay Away Faye?
Oh, he jumped brilliantly at Exeter. I couldn't see it being any issue for him. Okay. I thought he jumped really well at Exeter, even at the last fence when he came out of Harry Cobden's hands. I'd say he's loads of power and loads of scope, and jumping will suit him.
The following day at Sandown, we have got the novices equivalent of the Tingle Creek. This is the Henry VIII Novices Chase. We've got the field for that. And we discussed Unexpected Party last week, but also earlier in the show. He was 5th in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. I think this drop in trip is going to suit him. He's a second season novice. But the race I wanted you to take a look at, Ruby, was the one that JPR1 should have won and Petit Tonnerre did finish second in.
Yeah, but it's a really tactical affair. And how do you see this race being run? JPR1 has the race in the bag, goes to the last fence, and we all know what happens. Very unfortunate, but yeah, you'd have to think he's going to uphold that form. But Mighty Tom is the horse in third. He was behind Let's Be Clear About It at Cork. Petit Tonnerre, the race wasn't run to suit him. But tactically, what happens is there a small chance they could let Unexpected Party, with all his experience, jump and go here. This will be a tactical race, and I think that tactical race really suited JPR1.
Well, we saw experience with I Am Maximus managing to win, and so Unexpected Party, although he is a novice, he's bringing the same to the table.
And a lot of experience, and you'd wonder would the Skeletons try and use it.
OK, so that is coming up at the weekend, and we'll be discussing it next week. We end this week by looking at the more seasoned chasers, and the obvious place to start is the Coral Gold Cup that was won by That's All Right Gino, beating Marla Mission. What did you make of this?
Yeah, look, Isenor jumped out in front, but he went off to his right all the way, first and the second fence, and he got into some sort of a rhythm, but ultimately was disappointing. Obviously, That's All Right Gino's at the very back. I thought Marla Mission, Ben Harvey, had the perfect position in for a Coral Gold Cup. How many winners have you seen coming from that position? But look, when they got down to the business end, That's All Right Gino was the one coming from the back. Ahoy Senor was beaten before they turned out of the back straight. He was really disappointing. Marla Mission and That's All Right Gino come to the fore, the second last. And Gavin Sheehan gave the winner a brilliant ride. That's not taken from Ben Harvey either. He didn't do anything wrong. But Gavin, for a race that, when you look at the times of it, wasn't run as strong as maybe you thought, judging by That's All Right Gino's position. But where does he go? I mean, there's talk of supplementing him for the King George. You'd like to think he'd have travelled closer to the pace in the Coral Gold Cup if you want to win the King George.
That's exactly how I felt when I read that. He's got an option of a big handicap at Ascot as well, which, you know, perhaps might be a more sensible stepping stone. Immediately afterwards, John McConnell was talking about Marla Mission having lost both front shoes, and he said it's more of an issue for him than many horses because of his feet and needing particular shoes.
Yeah, it sounds like he wears ones that are stuck on rather than nailed on. But now, I don't know that for certain, but that's the way it sounds.
Yeah, and he was thinking that this horse, he was imagining was going to be a Grade 1 performer this season. Do you think that horse can build up to that level?
I think he can improve, yeah. Obviously, John had a winner in Dundalk last Friday night, but
after a long absence,
I'd say his horses are absolutely bombing, so he definitely could improve a good bit.
Yeah. And you mentioned Ahoy Senor. He just was unable to dominate. He was going out to his right, which is typical him. They're now thinking maybe Roland Merrick and Cotswold Chase, which was the race, obviously, he recovered his form in last season.
Yeah, Weatherby and then Cotswold Chase. Look, I mean, that's where he did bounce back last year in the Cotswold, but the fact they're going to give him another run between now and then, yeah, he's just at a bit of a crossroads, isn't he?
It's been put to me, and not least by Josh, who's part of the Road to Cheltenham team, that maybe they might switch to hurdles and maybe go for a stayers hurdle. It doesn't sound like it's on their mind at all.
I wouldn't have thought it was. It's not form. They don't do that too often. I wonder would they be looking at an English national for him?
Oh. Look away now. Let's go to Thurles, shall we, and have a look at Classic Getaway. Now, this was a good performance.
It was a good performance, competitive race. Classic Getaway, French Dynamite, James de Burle, Houghton Couleur, Farouk Delane and Capadano at the back. And Classic Getaway jumped out, got in a really good rhythm under Danny Mullins and jumped really well. And I was quite taken. Obviously, Houghton Couleur was favoured. Paul had the choice. Good jump 4 out from Classic Getaway. I loved him at the second last. He gets in close here, but watch how quickly he opens up on landing and puts distance between himself and Houghton Couleur. He was good at the last. A good performance for a horse with relatively little experience compared to most of the others in the race.
It really was. First thing to say, though, Houghton Couleur pulled up lame. How is he now?
He's still lame,
oh dear.
and not life-threatening, but it'll be a slow recovery, I'd say.
OK, I'm sorry to hear that. Switching to the winner, I thought he was really impressive. He had so little experience compared to the others. Do you think he could make up to being a Grade 1 horse?
A little bit like Grange Clare West, who won a novice chase at Naas. You're like, neither of them built on their first runs last year. You're hoping both can build on their first runs this year, but that was a solid performance.
Has he come out of the race OK?
Yeah, he looks 100%. Looks $1 million. He's a big light horse. He's not that heavy a horse, but yeah, he looks good. Where does he go now, though? Was he even entered in the Saddles? Did we enter him in the Saddles?
Yes, he's in the Saddles, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, which would be tougher again.
But that's what he's into. I mean, you look at his rate and what's he going to be rated after winning that race. He's going to have to mix it in the big league now.
And if you were Mas Morris, what would you make of French Dynamite's return?
I think he had a really good record at Thurles in the past. This time last year, he ran a brilliant race in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. Slightly underwhelming, but maybe it wasn't his target. That wasn't a race with huge prize money for the calibre of horse that could run in it. So Mike's might have been using it as a stepping stone to something else.
I thought he made an ill-timed mistake, and after that, when he really couldn't get back into the race, he was essentially allowed to come home for third, ahead of James de Burley, who also made some errors.
They made a few mistakes. Hard to know what kind of distance or what kind of horse James de Burley really is.
Yeah, I agree. I think
confusing.
he's a baffler. Right. We should mention Elixir de Nuts, who has already this season won a Holden Gold Cup and then up in the handicap, went on to win the last race at Newbury's Coral Winter Carnival in the hands of Freddie Gingell. These two have gelled so well.
They have, and he's a joy to watch, Elixir de Nuts. But when you watch him to Master Chewy, who ultimately ends up his main rival, there is some difference in the jumping. Elixir de Nuts attacks his fences, goes at them, whereas Mr. Chewy doesn't. And even when he lands, he's always having to make it up. Now, I'd say Master Chewy's a very good horse because what he lost in the air, he makes it really quickly with ability. But to me, it was jumping that was the difference between winning and losing here for Elixir de Nuts. Bregan bowled at the laugh, and even when Master Chewy was spot on, he still can't keep up with Elixir de Nuts in the air. And to me, this was one in the air.
What do you make of the young rider?
Oh, a huge future. He was so excited after winning the Halden Gold Cup. Great to see it, and big family tradition there. And I hope he goes along.
Very much so. So this is Elixir de Nuts in numbers, and I suppose again it's a similar question to I Am Maximus. He's going to be but in a different way. He's going to be taking that good jumping to a higher level because Joe Tizard, his trainer, is now thinking the Desert Orchid at Kempton, which is now a limited handicap over Christmas. So he'll be taking on potentially some, much better horses there.
Yeah, he will. But to me, he did the same in the Halden Gold Cup. Elixir de Nuts is a brilliant jumper. I'd be more looking at it thinking if they can ever get that Master Chewy to have a cut and be making ground, he's a better horse than his run.
So you're basically saying that Elixir de Nuts will be bringing his brilliant jumping to a field of brilliant jumpers?
Well, there could be, and the higher up in grade you go, is his brilliant jumping any advantage against a John Bonner or an Edward Stone? Probably not. It's definitely an advantage against. Now, Excitations was flamboyant in front, made a few mistakes, but Master Chewy just didn't have a cut.
Okay. Right, we've got some key races this weekend over fences, particularly over 2 miles, both at Sandown and at Cork. Let's take a look at the declarations that we have for the Tingle Creek. Boot Hill is there. Harry Fry said that he was going to go there. John Bond, of course, is there. And Edwardstone is there. And then we have the Hilly Way at Cork. And that's the return of El Fabiolo. That's the one we're waiting for this weekend. It's good to have John Bon and El Fabiolo in action the same weekend, different days.
Different days, yeah, and that'll be, it's been a race that's served William Mullins well in the past, so good stepping stone for El Fabiolo. This was last year's Arkle, and El Fabiolo himself had taken a few chances here and there as a novice. Didn't get overly high there, but he's a big engine and he looks well.
Huge engine. What's Cork like to jump?
Cork are not massive fences, but like that said, now it was lashing around when I left home Ireland, left home in Ireland this morning, and Cork could be really testing.
Okay, he'll be fine with that then, won't he?
Oh, he will be, but when the ground gets steeper, the jumps get bigger.
True that. Well, we'll definitely have plenty to analyse this time next week. Thank you very much for watching Road to Cheltenham. Thank you, as ever, for your company.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here in the studio this time next week. Good night.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.